if you were to take the core principles you learned in healing your own autoimmune disease and boil it down into like 2 or 3 minutes, like some really key things that you changed and what did you change and how did you change that helped your body heal, what were those top 3 things that you did?
Yeah. So the first thing is stress management. So we are living in a modern world on a very, very ancient gene code. Our genes have not demonstrably changed over the last thousands of years, right? And so we're really only accustomed to dealing with short-term stress. And long-term stress has a profound negative impact on us. And we are accustomed to either running away from the tiger or being eaten, right? But we're not accustomed to being constantly chased by the tiger. So whatever that means, right? So for some people, it's deadlines, it's social pressure, it's an illness, either your own or of a family member. So many people get sick after caring for a family member with a terminal illness. So it's finding those ways, because it's not the stress. We're never going to get rid of the stress, but it's how we deal with the stress, the meaning that we give to the stress, what we allow the stress to do to us. That's what's meaningful. And so for me, I had absolutely no stress management techniques, and I gave equal weight to everything. So it wasn't like every single thing was equally as important. And I had to do a real adjustment of that. And I also had to learn to say no to other people so that I could say yes to me. So at my core, I'm a people pleaser, and I want to say yes to everyone. And I want to make everyone happy. And in doing that, I was putting constant, unrealistic pressure on myself. And so for me, learning to meditate, making that a practice, and making myself a priority in a way that I hadn't before. And rethinking my priorities so that only the important things were treated with that level of importance. And the things that ultimately didn't matter, I had to let go to. And learning to say no was a big part of it for me. The other part of it for me was that I thought because I wasn't overweight, that I was eating in a way that was healthy. And my education around food needed to be increased significantly. And the way that I ate needed to be changed significantly. So I was a lot of eating on the run and not eating in a nourishing way at all. It was like, throw something in my mouth between cases and that kind of thing. A lot of eating standing up, eating while I was getting a meal together in the kitchen. And a little shamefully, although it's not shame or blame, right? I was an absolute sugar addict. And so I would forgo, I remember in college, I worked at Crohn's Chocolates, and I would forgo eating all day long and allot myself 8 or 10 truffles in lieu of eating. And so I had a lot of disordered eating that had to be fixed. And I discovered what my real eating pattern should look like. I discovered fasting, and that was very healing for me. And I got the sugar and the processed food out of my diet. And that made a huge difference for me. Because, I had been vegan for a very long time. And there's a lot of unhealthy vegans. So I say, like, Twizzlers are vegan. They're not good for you, but they're vegan. So I had to really realign myself with eating to be nourished and eating in a nourishing way.
More whole foods, more real foods, less processed
whole foods, real foods with a lot of color.
I mean, you can go to the store and buy organic, vegan, gluten-free, non-GMO packaged foods that you think, hey, it hits all the check boxes. This is great. And you look on the back and it's like 18 grams of sugar. And what kind of sugar? It's like, they've got like 4 different kinds of sugar in there and it's all highly processed. That's the stuff you want to avoid. Like if you're gonna have sugar, you need to get it from your berries and your fruits and your natural sources, whole foods with the water, the fiber, the phytonutrients, the anti-cancer chemical molecules, etc.
Exactly.
Right? So we get tricked into this greenwashing that's happening. That's like on the package it looks healthy, but if you read the ingredients and the actual amounts. And some of these things too, they say 4 servings or 2 servings, and you're like, 7 grams of sugar, once in a while isn't that bad in a snack or something like that. It checks all the other boxes, but you eat the whole thing, and that's 4 servings because they got away with it. It's not really 1 serving because nobody eats 1 serving. Everyone eats the whole thing.
Right.
You're getting 28 grams of sugar in 1 serving. You're putting gasoline on the fire, right? Yeah. I want to go to Michael's question here really quick because I think this is so profound. Michael's saying, Dr. Simmons, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on what you consider as healing, particularly with autoimmune disease and cancer. Often I hear autoimmune diseases cannot be healed and that one with an autoimmune disease can at best reach a remission status through healthy practices and is at risk of flares for life. Similarly, the same with the notion of being cancer-free, that remission is what's available and possible at best. Your thoughts?
So I'm going to say that if you find a place, a lifestyle, if you create an environment that puts you in remission, that is the same thing as healing. Right? If you're no longer suffering, if you're no longer in pain, if you're able to do all the things that you want to do, then that is the same thing as healing. Now, I tell people I walk a tight line because I know that if I go back to the way I lived my life before, then I will have all of that will come roaring back.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that I haven't healed.
Right.
Right. And so when doctors say that you can't be healed from autoimmune disease and cancer, you certainly can't be healed by any of the options that they're offering you, in that their options are about symptom suppression. That's not what I'm talking about. Like my current lifestyle is not about symptom suppression. It's about the lack of symptoms because I no longer have the inflammatory stimulus that was driving the disease. So when you go back to what I said in the beginning with Dr. Fasano's triad of autoimmune disease, if you get rid of the effect that the stress is having on you, if you heal your gut so that you no longer have intestinal permeability, and if you remove the triggers that drive your disease, then you're not going to be symptomatic. Do you still have a tendency towards that if you let all that stuff back in again? Yes, of course. But if you don't let that stuff back in again, I equate being asymptomatic with healing.